So I'm currently in the process of building my second really large website. At the time of this video, I currently have 190 articles published in the first 6.5 weeks of the website being launched. I thought it'd be a great time to make a video about the Google Sandbox. What is the Sandbox and how long does it last? We have some terrific pictures from my Google Analytics from my first authority website, and we'll dive into the topic a little bit deeper. Let's take a look. So how to get out of the Google Sandbox. So first off, it's important to understand what the sandbox is and what does it mean to building a new website on the internet. It is related to search engine optimization for ranking content, ranking even the main keyword on your website, your brand name. It all matters when it comes to the Google Sandbox. And what it is just a theoretical filter that is used by Google to prevent new websites from ranking high in Google search engine results pages. Now, dating back 5 to 10 years ago, it was very easy to rank a new website in Google. All it took was publishing a piece of content. Despite having high quality, Google would rank it really high if you sent a lot of positive signals to the site, such as backlinks or high levels of traffic. Google would say, oh, that website is credible. A lot of things are linking to it, and its algorithm would shoot that website really high in the search engine as soon as even days or weeks of that site being launched. Not regarding authority, not regarding trust. And it wound up being a main problem for Google for not filtering out spam. And a lot of spammy websites were ranking very quickly, and it was creating a lot of junk on the internet. So the Google Sandbox, I think, is just a change to the filter. They don't acknowledge the sandbox. They don't really talk about it in detail. But in our community of SEO, we understand the Google Sandbox is just a filter on new websites that prevents them from ranking early stages, and it can last anywhere from 3 to 8 months, really depending on the niche of your website. Now, another thing to keep in mind too is just because your website has been published or launched for several months or even several years, there's also Sandbox on the URL level, meaning if you publish a new piece of content in the form of an article or a different page on the website, that page or article could take time to be indexed and be appropriately ranked in Google. So we'll kind of discuss a little bit of that. I'll show little examples of my experiences with the Sandbox and even discuss how to get out of the Sandbox. So my first chart here is looking at my authority website number 1. And if you've been following my journey so far, my first authority website now has 526 published articles and is just over 8 months old. You can check out the first video on my channel if you're interested in learning that journey and seeing how much I'm making, the traffic there. But this is just a chart I pulled showing my daily organic search traffic with the first article being published in April. And this is the growth of the first 6 months. So you can definitely see how for April and May, there was no traffic whatsoever. Things were moving really slowly, and it was definitely very discouraging early on. You're wondering, is my content good? Is Google not finding my website? Are there some internal issues? It's really just the sandbox effect of content taking a while to be ranked, right? They don't want this new website to shoot up in the SERPs and take away authority and views from other websites. So they don't want that. They want websites to gain trust, to be helpful to the users, and that's what this filter kind of does. So there is a little spike you see there in June. That was one of my keywords kind of going viral for a couple days. But other than that, it's a very slow, steady growth, which is the result of me publishing articles and allowing the website to age and new content to rank. And then the next chart is the same exact time period for the same website, but now we're just looking at it on a weekly chart, right? So you see that growth is a lot more gradual and very consistent over the course of those first 6 months of my website's existence, which is pretty neat to say. I think it's important to understand it's not always just a domain level. It also is for new articles. And I like showing these examples because these are articles that have lower search volume that are also easier for me to compete for. So the first post here is an article published on April 21st. It was a 1,000-word article that I wrote by myself. I did not outsource this article. And the monthly search volume was 720. Now, there was other decent articles in the SERPs, but I figured I could do a little more research, provide some better content, and potentially outrank those articles. And while the article is published on April 21st, It did start getting some initial traffic in the first couple weeks once it was indexed on Google when my site was maybe only a month and a half, 2 months old, which was really awesome. But then you see the big jumps in July and August for that article. It was getting anywhere from 15 to 25 views a day, which was terrific. And that's pretty good for a decently medium-sized competitive keyword. It was ranking anywhere between 1 to 3 for the keyword, kind of jumping up and down. And then the article really did receive some steady traffic, into the months of September, October, November, December, and it's still one of my better performing articles to date on that website. The next one was published on April 23rd. This is a cool chart because it was crickets for the first month or two. I was debating going back and editing the article and making it different and wondering, what I did wrong. I got that viral spike on June when the topic was being talked about in the news and people were Googling it a lot. So that was great initial traffic. And then after that point, the traffic started coming in on a daily basis. So in July, there was some large upticks in traffic on a daily basis. But then it became a lot more steady on a weekly, monthly basis. And heading into August, traffic continued to come in and growing. And that article still receives a lot of decent traffic today for a keyword that only gets 260 clicks a month, according to Ubersuggest. The next one, it's a similar keyword to the one that I just published in April 23rd. But this keyword's neat because it got traffic fairly early on. So in the first couple months of being launched, it did get, anywhere from 2 to 5 views a day, which was great because you feel like you put out a piece of content that was ranking and helping your website grow. But once it kind of got to that 6-7 month mark, the traffic really started jumping. And I'm seeing that now in December and January. This article is one of my better performing articles on my website, and it's continuing to grow, which is awesome. I think that just shows the Google Sandbox effect of, sometimes articles may take long to rank and it may take time to just get in the SERPs. But once they are in a position that's bringing traffic, they're going to continue to grow. And the Google Sandbox maybe doesn't limit your traffic early on, just getting some initial exposure, but it can limit the large growth that article deserves. So this article, it got some traffic early on and make you think, okay, the Sandbox isn't really effective. But then all of a sudden I got these big spikes in November, December, which makes you think it's just slowing down its growth. So how to get out of the Google Sandbox? I think the first thing that's important is, what niche are you in? Are you picking a niche that requires an expert? Does it require a higher authority to validate the information that's on your website? And these are typically topics known as YMYL, so it's your money, your life. If it's a website about finances, if it's a website about your health, those type of topics you need to be really careful with because it takes a lot of time, and I mean several years, for those type of websites to gain authority and trust in Google. And it's usually those type of sites that maybe have an expert in the field who has a certificate for being educated on the topic, and that's noted on the website, or a doctor, or anything along those lines, maybe even a nurse. Those type of websites take time to rank because Google doesn't want to put out junk in their search engine. They want to make sure if they're recommending a website for something as important as someone's health, the information's relevant and it is credible. And those websites can take a lot longer. The website that I showed over here, I was in a hobby niche, right? So that website was able to do a lot better because between my About Me page and other things on my website, you're able to figure out, okay, this person knows what he's talking about a hobby. It's away from the your money and the your life areas. And I think that's key to having a website initially take off. Another thing I did that definitely helped my website grow early on was sharing my website on social media platforms. And I don't mean spamming in any way. This is just putting your website in your profile link, in your bios, having the website gain some initial trust in Google saying, oh, okay, the website's mentioned on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. That's really good. So I would recommend making a profile page for maybe just 4 or 5 of the basic social media platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, even Pinterest, Instagram. Those are really good for just putting your link in there, not for the backlink aspect, but just to tell Google, hey, this is a real website, this is a business, and we're promoting ourselves on social media. It'll just create a little more authority and trust early on. And I definitely saw that growth as a result of doing that. Another thing to see is make sure you're targeting topics and keywords that don't have coverage on Google already. Google's more likely to rank content that it's hungry to rank, right? Like there's a need for that answer to be solved on Google that no one's addressed it before. If you write an article that answers a search query that, maybe even has 10 to 20 searches a month, but there's no article that even answers it, you're more likely to shoot up to that position than you would for an article that already satisfies another search query on the internet. So make sure you're writing about topics for a new website that can rank right away, because you're the only person that has the answer. And those websites will gain that initial traffic early on, and then Google is more likely to say, okay, if they got this early traffic, we're more likely to trust them for the next step up of keywords. And a thing that I like to do for my websites is actually, when I'm doing my keyword analysis and my topic research, I like to outsource to my writers the keywords that are the low competition in terms of monthly searches. And if I outsource those articles first, those are going to be the first articles that start to rank. And when those articles start to rank, then I'm more likely to go after the next step up in keywords, right? So like, let's say the first 10 articles, I go after anywhere from 0 to 100 monthly searches. Put those in, publish on my website. My next 10 might be from 100 to 250. And obviously it depends on the keyword research you're doing and what things you're pulling, but I'm more likely to publish the low competition keywords early on, because those articles are going to start ranking a lot quicker. And I think that's really important for gaining trust for your website early on in Google's eyes. And that's where it goes into the traffic growth is key. I think having a website that actually gets some traffic early on from these lower competition articles is a really positive signal to Google, because it's solving questions that need to be answered, and it's more likely to trust you for the more competitive topics. So I do think traffic growth is key. And the second question is, how do you get that traffic growth? Underserved topics. So early on, really important, and I think that will really help get out of the Google Sandbox a lot earlier than most websites. Now, you don't always need backlinks, and I've seen this in two different ways. So my first authority website, I waited about a month or two before I started building backlinks, but my website was receiving traffic early on, anywhere from 20 to 40 visitors a day before I started building backlinks. Building backlinks to my site, while it was risky, it did help with its growth, and I think I got out of the Google Sandbox maybe a little quicker than other websites, but it's very costly. And if I just took that same exact amount of money I spent on backlinks and put it into maybe another couple hundred articles, or even 20 to 50 articles, I think the growth would have been quite similar. And for the long-term growth of my website, I would have had more content and more quality value to the user. So I think they almost cancel out. If you get backlinks naturally, if you're able to do outreach for backlinks and spend, minimal time and maybe even no money, you could argue it's worth it, but it's really risky. It's not worth the effort. I've seen websites grow without backlinks at all. I don't think you need them. My second authority website, I have no plan in the near future to build backlinks. I kind of want to see how my first couple hundred articles do on the site before I worry about that side. So that's really important to me, and I think that's a key to making sure I get out of the sandbox. Thanks again for watching the video. If you like what you see, please make sure you subscribe and leave a like down on the video. There's going to be a lot of exciting content coming out about search engine optimization and following the growth of my two really large websites. One of them has 526 articles published. The second one, I have a plan to get to 1,000 in the next couple months. You won't want to miss the organic search traffic growth. It's going to be really interesting to see. Thanks again.